Okay. I have one other option called source, which I don't know what that means. I think it just means the actual source resolution, so like 4K or whatever. But this is a 1080 monitor anyway,
Yeah, this looks
so
perfect.
okay.
I'm just dying to click your little notification area icon now.
On Discord?
It's killing me.
Wait, which one?
From your action center or whatever by the clock.
Oh,
Very right.
this?
Yeah.
Oh, gross. Okay, so where were we? Did everybody get their path variables configured, or should we walk through that again real quick? Yes.
I got mine added.
Okay. To confirm it, it's really easy. Once you've done all that, close everything and open a new command prompt. Hang on.
It's really easy, but I don't remember how.
Right. There it is. So type in javac space dash version, and it should give you this line of text here. And if it gives you that, and it doesn't give you some other BS like the first several times I messed it up, then you'll know you did it right. And I'll type out the command here.
Okay, yeah, mine's giving me, it's not recognized as an internal or external command.
Okay. Anybody else have any issues? Okay, so Mal, go back to path and hit edit.
Okay, I didn't see there was a slash last time. Okie dokie.
Okay. You get, so does it work now? Is that working?
No.
Okay.
Do I need to exit out of the command prompt and try it again?
Yes, you have to close the command prompt and reopen it.
That worked. I also can't spell the word version correctly, but it's good now.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, so that's, to me, that's like the biggest pain in the ass of getting Java all set up. So we've done all the really painful, dumb shit. Now we can actually start to do something fun and interesting. So did everybody download Eclipse, or do you still need to do that?
Mine's downloaded.
Okay. Okay. Val, Eddie?
Yeah, I got
yes, got it.
Okay. So when you downloaded Eclipse, and I'm assuming did you just download it or did you install it as well? And by install, I just mean put it somewhere, basically. Unpack it.
Yeah, I had extracted it.
Okay. Okay.
Me too.
Same here.
So the nice thing about Eclipse is it's a pretty lightweight install. It doesn't do anything to the Windows registry or any other silly shit like that. So you pretty much just unpack it wherever you want, and it's going to create a folder called Eclipse. So you probably have that. And then in there is eclipse.exe. I would recommend putting it on your desktop or on your taskbar or whatever, because otherwise you have to navigate all the way back here every time you want to use it. So assuming you have all that, you should be able to double click on eclipse.exe and it should open up.
Alright, give me 1 second to help Tobe with some.
Okay. What's the file? JMV or JVM? It's weird. Can you screen clip it and put it in chat? Okay. So I'll have you guys know that I didn't change my background just because I thought would be embarrassed. This is legit my boring ass background every day because I have
Oh,
no
depress me.
creativity.
Just the gray.
I was very curious.
He just didn't want us to see Murphy's nudes.
Nah, she wouldn't care. I'll show you doggy pictures. Oh wait, hang on. Okay, I'm looking. Um. Okay, Tobe. I think I know what you did, but I'm not sure. I'm gonna go to the Eclipse website. Did you just when you downloaded it? Did you just download this here? Yeah. I just let me hold on. Like this. Then you hit download. Now it looks like this. Okay. So if you go to download 64-bit, and then you just hit this orange download button. Yeah. I think you downloaded the 32-bit version. That's what it looks like. So download this one here. Make sure you get the 64-bit version. And while Tobe does that, I'll show you pictures of my dumbass dog. Here's my good dog.
I like how you have like a whole thing dedicated to them.
Yeah. They go to doggy daycare and they send me these goofy ass pictures. That's Gracie. She's a good dog.
Aw.
Yeah. There's the other idiot.
That your son you're not proud of.
Yeah, he sucks.
Is he the one that eats like the kitchen mats and stuff?
Oh yeah.
He looks so happy though.
He's always happy. He loves life. They put all this weird shit on these pictures. Oh, they had an Oscar party. He got a little Oscar statue to take home, but it was a dog.
Nice.
It's great.
Aw.
I don't know who that is. Probably some dog gave him rabies.
You
Yeah,
should know
he's
who your
always
children's
happy as
friends
hell.
are.
I
Okay.
know.
See, there
For
his
real?
little friend again in the background.
Yeah, it's Ghost Dog.
Your ghost dog is your dog's a ghost whisperer.
Oh yeah, he dressed up as Batman
Sweet.
on Halloween. Let's see if I can. Gracie dressed up as a hot dog. All right, that's all I got, I guess. Yeah, I don't know exactly where my wedding pictures are, but I can tell you where all these pictures of my dogs are. Uh-oh, did you just get yelled at? Yep. Yep. Okay, that's weird. I would say just do the installer. At just what I don't know what that error is, but if this window pops up, which it looks like it did, I would just go ahead and see if you can install it. And then I would pick a new location if you have room on your hard drive, which I'm pretty sure you guys each have like 20,000 terabytes of space. Yeah. Yeah. Clips for Java developers. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Where are you putting it now? Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay. Right. So, by the way, while that's installing, I'm pretty sure I'm going to roll Death Knight for BFA. My Death Knight's 109.5, and Blood is super awesome. No. Yeah. That's okay. I'm sure it'll be up again before August. I've still only gotten one of them on my Paladin. The ret one is the one you had the other day, right? With the skulls on it. How do you get that? Okay. I was trying to get the Prot one for a while, but you have to do the the withered training, and I just can't stomach that anymore.
Is that the paladin appearances you're talking about?
Yeah, the pet like Prot Paladin, you have to finish the withered thing with like some weird set of criteria. Like you have to have, I think, more than a couple guys with you or some shit. I don't know, and then it has a chance to drop. And I can demolish the place now. It's not hard. It's just like 15 or 20 minutes of my time that I don't ever end up wanting to spend doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather try the Mage Tower for a while.
Hashtag shutter.
Yeah. I think I've almost got it though. I got to the second phase a couple times.
Yeah, there's a book thingy from Dire Mall that I keep posted on the auction house. I think it's for a paladin artifact appearance. Those sell pretty
Oh.
well.
Interesting.
Well, they don't sell very often, but when they do, they sell for anywhere from 12 to 15,000 a piece.
You have to give me some auction house tips at some point because I need money.
Trade skill master, dude. That's where it's at.
Yeah. I installed it. I just need to figure out how it all works.
Yeah, just start watching YouTube videos on it. You can find all kinds of guides and stuff out there, and then you just have to play with it.
Gotcha. Okay. Yay. Yep. That works. Okay. So if you started Eclipse and it brought this window up for you that says select a directory as a workspace, this is basically just kind of like a root folder where it will put all of your projects. Tobe, the reason why I didn't do that for you is because I'm guessing you had on some other version of Eclipse that you had installed, you had set this up already. We can change that. So, because obviously you may not remember what that directory was. But so does anyone have this window?
Yes.
I got it.
So choose a directory that's appropriate for you and then hit launch. And then is everybody to a screen that looks similar to this?
It's still loading.
Okay.
Okay, I'm there now.
Mal and Val.
I made it.
Yep.
All right. So we'll start with we'll just make a very simple Java project just so you guys can start to get your feet wet a little bit. So create a new Java project. And then
Mine
give it
says
some
create a new JavaScript project. Does that make any difference?
It does. You do not want to create a JavaScript project.
Okay, I don't have that option you have.
Okay. Interesting. So, can you make a new, let's see. Go ahead and just make a JavaScript project, and then once the window opens and you have this, once your layout looks similar to mine, let me know. Okay, let's see what you got there.
Oh, you got the EE. IDE.
Okay, I see. That's probably fine. If it's not, we'll reconfigure you. It's not a big deal. So, just for you, Mel, once you've created, like, let's see, did you end up creating a JavaScript project?
Yes, it's
Okay.
doing something weird.
Okay.
Okay, I now have a layout like yours.
Okay. Now go to File and go to New Project.
Okay.
And then do you have a Java folder like mine?
Yes.
And you can make a Java project like this?
Yeah.
Do that. And now you should have a window that looks like everybody else's.
Yeah. Did I download the wrong thing?
It's all the same IDE, but it's just like different configurations. So you must have selected the a different configuration, which is not really a big deal. We can fix it. But it's kind of neither here nor there.
Okay.
It has all the same shit. It just set up a little bit differently. So make a project, give it a name. I'll call mine hello motherfuckers. That's because that's how I roll. Okay, so I'll go through what these settings are. So this is probably the most important one where it says JRE. So basically, this is saying what version of Java do I want to use. That's important because like each version of Java has different features, and the newer the version, the better the features are. So like the very first version of Java was like total dog shit, and then like 2, 3, and 4 got a little bit better, and Java 5 is when things started to get pretty decent for Java. So there's 5, 6, 7, and 8 is basically the most recent one. Java 9 was kind of an experimental one, and 10 just came out like a month ago, so no one's using it. So for all intents and purposes, Java 8 is like the most recent, like widely used version of Java. So you want to try and develop for Java 8. And when I say 8, they basically mean Java 1.8. So Java 5 is 1.5, 1.6 is 6, etc., etc. So, and again, with each version, they added new features to the language. So by using Java 8 or 1.8, you get the newest features that the language has available. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, if for whatever reason you were ever developing an application that needed to interface with like an older version of Java, like let's say you got a job at some company and they wrote a bunch of code in Java 1.5 and you needed to add something to it, you might want to change it to Java 1.5 to make sure that you didn't use any of the features that wouldn't play well with, like they wouldn't interface with the older code. So that's why that option is there. Project layout, create separate folders for sources and class files. Sources are basically like where you're writing your code. They're files that typically end in .java, and they're literally just text documents. You could open them in any text editor and type in them, it's fine. Class files are the compiled versions of the source code. So basically, when I was saying you use that Java compiler to turn it into ones and zeros, that's essentially what these class files are. So all this is saying is we're going to make 2 folders for you. One's going to be for your source files, basically your text files, and one's going to be for your compiled code. Does that all make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
And then this last one, I don't know what this shit is. So we go, skip it. Oh, and then this top section where it says use default location. Remember where we set up where a workspace was going to be? So it basically just puts the project, just creates a folder inside of our designated workspace with the name of the project. So for you, Tobe, if you didn't know where your workspace was, you can see it here at the beginning. You can tell where your workspace is. Okay. And if you don't want to use that location, you can uncheck this and then put it wherever you want. Okay. So for now, it's going to tell you what it's doing. It's creating a source folder. I can link additional sources. We're not going to go into that yet. We're going to add this to the build path, which it's doing for us. All these other tabs here We'll get into those in later lessons, but for now, this is really all that matters. It's going to create our folder, and it's going to create a source folder for our code that we're going to write, and then once we compile it, it's going to put that in a separate folder once it's compiled. So we'll hit finish. I'm gonna delete
Mine
this
asked me
one.
about this kind of project is associated with the Java perspective. Blah 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 blah. Wants to know if I want to open the perspective.
Yeah, that's fine. Perspectives are just so like Eclipse has all these windows, like for all these different parts of what you're going to be doing. Perspectives are just like a group of these like set up in a particular way. Like I don't know.
Okay.
Like I don't know if you guys use ElvUI, but every time you go to set up a new character in ElvUI, it's like, are you a tank or a healer? And if you pick healer, it puts the buttons in a different place. It's the same
Yeah.
shit. It's like, hey, we're gonna put these windows in this order versus a different order, or hide certain things that you don't need, or show certain things that you do need. Okay. So has everybody got this going? Feel comfortable?
Yes.
Okay. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a new class. So let me back up because sometimes I go too fast. So on the SRC directory, which stands for source, aka source code, you'll right click and you'll hit new, and then you'll hit class. You don't have Package Explorer? Okay.
I love how it didn't occur to him it was dirty, and then it did, and you could tell how happy he was.
That's going to ruin your weekend. Let's try this then. If you go to Window, you go to Perspective, you say Open Perspective. You go to Other. Do you have Java? All right, hit Java and then hit Open. Okay. Does yours look like this? On the left? Okay. Okay. Now this shit makes me laugh. Okay. So go to Window and then Show View, and then go down to Other. Type in Package, and you should have Package Explorer. Okay. Is it on the? Did it automatically put it on the left side for you? Okay. Stop being a jackass.
I was yawning.
I thought you were being rude.
No, this is fantastic.
Okay, so, Okay. So right click on source, new class. And then is everybody on this window?
Yes, teacher.
Yes.
All right. So give this a name. We'll just call it main. You can really call it whatever you want, but yeah, just call it main. You can call it whatever you want, but call it exactly what I just told you. And then at the bottom here, where it says which method stubs would you like to create, put a checkbox in the one that says public static void main. And then when you're ready, hit finish.
Package hello, motherfucker.
That's kind of how I live my life. Okay, so does everybody have something like what I'm looking at?
Yes.
Fucking what?
Mine did the same thing, to be fair, though.
Just link a picture real quick. Oh, this? The warning? Same thing I got? Okay, yeah. No, you're fine.
Why you sound so damn confused when you're doing the same thing?
I don't know. I wasn't looking at it. I was blissfully ignorant. Okay, so now we're going to actually write a program. It's going to be a real stupid program. But we're going to type along with me. Capital S system dot out dot println for print line. And then actually, so do you guys see the same thing I'm seeing here with this obnoxious window?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Just double click it and it'll go away. But basically what it does is it helps you with what they call code completion. So let me back up a step here. So when you hit the dot, it'll show you all the things that would be acceptable commands. So like if you type in some dumb shit like that, it's gonna put red squigglies, kind of like if you like spell check error, because it doesn't know what that shit is that I typed in. So it does two things for you. It recommends what you could type in that would work, and it tells you when you've typed in something that it knows won't work. And we'll go into a lot more detail as we go along about what those commands are and how they work, et cetera, et cetera. But basically, code completion is just helping you more easily write code so that you don't have to waste time. Like if you had to remember every single command, you'd never get anything done. So that's basically it helping you out. So system.out.println. And also if you hit, I think it's tab. I guess it's enter. Yeah, it basically auto fills it in for you. And then do an open quote. And then type pretty much whatever you want. And then close quote. So you should have something that looks like that. So has everybody got something similar?
Yes.
I do.
Now you should be able, at the top here, this big green play button, should be able to run this. And when you go to run it, it's going to ask you to save it if you haven't saved it. So yes, I want to save it. And then it's going to run my application, which at the very bottom here, the console, it's going to run the application and do everything that I told it to do, which was this one stupid thing that said basically print this line to the console. So now you're a Java developer.
Cool. New job time.
Yep. That's about all I know.
A riveting 90 minutes of my life.
Yeah. Okay, so did everybody's run and print something? Print what you expected to see at the bottom?
Yes.
Okay.
So proud.
Okay. So now we have done all of the preliminary setup. You can now actually write Java code, compile applications, and like do cool shit. So you've done all the setup, your Eclipse works, your Java setup, all that stuff. Great. Now, what the hell is all this shit, right? None of this makes any sense to you, probably. Or some of it might make some sense. Other parts of it are like, what the fuck? Right?
See?
Okay, so we'll start going through kind of what all this shit is. We'll start with we'll start kind of from the inside out. So each of these curly brackets are basically containers for commands or other containers. So a class contains some stuff, and this is a method, which we'll go into in a second, and a method contains one or more like executable programming commands. These double slashes and the green colored text indicate comments. In programming code, comments, well, if you guys have written SQL, you're probably familiar with SQL comments. Like dash dash and then you write a bunch of shit. No?
Yes. Yes.
Fucking crickets. Okay.
Vaguely.
So comments are basically just things that are not going to get executed. So like so if you want to put this comment in your code, then someone else who might read your code later knows what this next line is going to do. But this comment, when the code gets compiled and run, it pulls this out and it doesn't execute it. So it's just for, a comment is just for you to read. It's not for the computer to actually execute. So when you do the double slashes, you can pretty much type whatever you want. There's no syntax. It's basically just typing free-form text. So does that make sense?
Yes.
So this at the top here that I have highlighted, this is a method. So it's basically sometimes they're referred to as functions, sometimes they're referred to as methods. I kind of use the term interchangeably. So if you've ever worked with like Excel and you've used any of the Excel functions, part of this should look kind of familiar to you. You typically, if you're going to use an Excel function, it has a name, and then it has like an open paren and a closed paren, and inside there's 0 or more like arguments that you have to pass in, and then it gives you an output, right?
Yes.
Okay. Everybody following along so far?
Yes.
Okay. So This is an entire method signature, which is comprised of several elements. It's comprised of the method name, which in this case is called main. It's comprised of a return type, which in this case is void, which means it's not going to return anything. And then it's also comprised of input parameters, things it needs in order to do its job. And then these other two keywords are an access modifier, which we will go into at a later time, and a static keyword, which we will also go into at a later time. But for the most part, what makes up any function in any programming language are basically these three elements: the return type, the name, and the input parameters. So we're going to write a very simple function so that you guys can get an idea of like how this actually works. So we're going to write a function that takes in two integer numbers, and returns the sum of those two numbers. So it's an add function. So for this function, we'll say public static, and then we're going to return an integer value. An integer in programming terms typically means a whole number, so any number, just no decimal points. And it's typically abbreviated to int. And then in order to add two numbers together, we need to know what those numbers are. So the input parameters will be type integer, and we'll give it a name of first number, and another integer that we'll call second number. So what this is basically saying is we've got this function called add. It returns an integer, and in order to use it, you have to pass it an integer, and you have to pass it another integer. And everything that you want to pass in is separated by commas, and then has to have a name. So here's the type that you're expecting to pass in. So you wouldn't pass in a string or something else. You would have to pass in an integer, and then the names will be used inside of this function to determine what we want to do, or how we're going to use those numbers. So what we're going to do next is we're going to create another integer that'll be the return value that we'll give back after we've added the first and second number. So inside of our function here, we've created a we'll call it it's a variable basically, and it's called return value. And then we're going to set return value to be equal to the first number plus the second number. So it's really as simple as I'll type it out here. So is everybody following that so far?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we have a return value. Now we have to give it back. We have to push it out of this function. So in order to return anything from the function, you use the keyword return. So basically what this is saying is I'm going to create an integer variable called return value. I'm going to set return value to be equal to the first number that I pass in plus the second number, and then I'm going to return my return value. And by the way, I kind of skipped over this. So all of these things that are in bold, like the words public static, int, return, these are all language-specific keywords. And what that means is you cannot use those words to like name a variable or something. So you notice here I called this return value. Like I could not have called it return because return is like a reserved word that has to be used for this specific purpose. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to actually use this function that we just wrote. So back in our main function, so as a separate call out, so the way Java works and the way most programming languages work is they have to have an entry point. They have to know where the program starts. And the way they do that is there has to be a method that has a very specific signature. And in Java's case, it's this specific signature. So whenever you run a Java application, wherever it has to be able to find an entry point or find a method that matches this exact signature, or else Java won't be able to run it. So for our purposes, what that effectively means is that this is the first method that gets run as soon as our program starts. It can do a billion trillion other things once it's in there, but this is its initial point of entry or starting point, I guess. So we're going to print our string there, and then we're going to add these numbers together. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new integer. And we'll just call it sum. And then we're going to call our function. So we're just going to literally type it out. And then in the parentheses, we're going to specify two numbers that we would like to pass in. Oh, and then also every Java statement has to conclude with a semicolon. A statement is not considered complete until it has a semicolon at the end. Now you'll notice that not every line in this has a semicolon. And that's because not every line of this is an executable statement. So for example, this first line, it has no semicolon because it's basically just saying, I'm a container for this executable statement, this executable statement, this executable statement, and then I'm closing my container. Everybody follow that?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So now we have created an integer, and we've used our add method that we created down here. And now we're going to use this same statement here, the system.out.println, to print out the value that we've added together. So I'm going to run this. And obviously I would expect, since I've added 3 and 4 together, I would expect for it to print 7. And it did. So it printed my first line, and then it printed 7. So there it is doing, once again, doing all the things I've told it to do. So was everybody able to do the same?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So at the core of programming, like that's a lot of what it is. It's really simple shit that you put together into giant blocks. So it's a lot of tiny pieces put together in incredibly complicated ways. We'll go over a few other like very basic concepts, and then I'm going to give you guys a bunch of resources to look at over the next couple weeks, and then we'll I'll go into some more detail about where I think we can go from here. But let's just cover the last couple things. So programs, generally, as like a very simple metaphor, they take in data and they output data, and they use what they call control structures or flow control to determine how to manipulate the data that you put in. Control structures are basically if statements, which you guys are probably all somewhat familiar with, loops, which you all might be familiar with, and switches, which are basically just big if statements. So we'll do each one of those in a very simple way, just so you understand how each of them work within Java. So first off, has anybody ever wrote an if statement in SQL or any other language?
I have.
I was
Malto?
gonna say no.
Okay. Okay, it's super easy. So we're gonna make a new method very similar to the one that we did here. So public static. We'll have this one return a string. So a string in programming is typically an indeterminate number of characters, like language glyphs, like SG, whatever. And I say indeterminate because typically strings don't have a determined end length. A string could say Steve, it could say Tobe, it could say, hi, how are you doing this morning, blah, 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 blah. So this method is going to return a string. The name of the method is going to be are you Steve? And it's going to take in an input parameter of a string. So what this method is meant to do is it's going to look at the value that you've passed in the name variable, and it's going to determine if that equals the name Steve. If it equals Steve, then it's going to return a string that says you are Steve. If it doesn't equal Steve, it's going to return a string that says you're not Steve. If So what we're doing here is we're creating an if statement, and inside the if statement, this is what we're going to check. So the if statement is declared by the open paren and the closed paren, and then we're going to take the name, and then every object in Java has an equals function, and which is basically letting you compare the value of what's in this name variable to some other value and determine if those values are equal. So basically, if name.equals Steve, then we'll do an open curly brace. And if you hit enter, Java will automatically put the closing curly brace. And again, the curly braces are basically containers. So if name equals Steve, do all the shit that I'm about to put in here. 1 thing, 10 things, it doesn't matter. and then we're going to add an else block, which basically says, so if name equals Steve, do this. Otherwise, do whatever I put in here instead. So does anybody have any questions on that? That's a little bit more in depth.
Can you remind me real quick what the static keyword means?
The static keyword just means that, so like how familiar are you with object-oriented programming?
I was very familiar with it years ago, but it's been a long time.
Okay. So typically in object-oriented programming, you'd have a class and then you'd create an instance of that class, and you could have multiple instances of the same class. Static just means that you do not need an instance in order for this method to work. It's basically like a meta method.
Okay, so it's scope.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. So now, Maltobe, you guys good?
Yep, I am.
Okay. Okay. So now, in our main method, we're going to add a couple more lines. We're going to add a string variable called were you Steve? And then we're going to set that to equal the output of our method that we just wrote down here. And then we're going to pass in some string value. In this case, I'll pass in Steve. And then we're going to print the output of what we did. Okay. And then I'm going to run it. And it says, you are Steve, because I typed in Steve. Now, just to prove that this is working, we're going to enter some other value. And now it says, you are not Steve. So what's happening here, as we intended, is that we're passing in some value, we're comparing that value to Steve, and then we're determining if the values were equal, we're going to return this. If the values were not equal, we'll return that. That makes sense?
Yes.
Give me 1 second. I messed mine up somewhere.
Okay.
Steve, do you have a good Eclipse shortcut list that you use?
So truth be told, I don't actually use Eclipse. I use another product called IntelliJ. I'll show you that real quick. Eclipse is free, which is why I'm using it for this purpose. IntelliJ is another Java development environment. It's a lot richer, but it's not free. Well, there's a community edition that's free, but the ultimate edition is like the bee's knees.
Gotcha.
So unfortunately, I don't have a Eclipse shortcut list.
I figured out what I did wrong, by the way.
Here's my big boy IDE.
So we're looking at the Photoshop of Java IDE.
Yeah, yeah. I like this one a lot better. And again, so there's a community edition of IntelliJ, and I can put that in the Java info. If you guys are interested, you can take a look at it. I think it has a much richer tool set, but I've never used the community edition. I just got the ultimate edition, so I'm not sure what's missing. But yeah, this is my Java environment of choice. Yeah, I was trying to make a Google Cloud web application, so that when we got to web apps, we could easily like publish them somewhere that was free. But unfortunately, I have to like sign up for all this dumb Google shit, so I didn't want to do that because it like wants your credit card number and all this stuff, and I was like, no thanks.
I've got a private server that we could use.
Okay, that's cool. So anyway, that's IntelliJ. This is gross ass Eclipse. I also like IntelliJ because it has a dark theme and the white light bothers me.
I'm 100% with you with that. This is so bright.
Yes. It like legit hurts my eyes. Okay, so what did you do, Mel?
I had a curly doodad in the wrong place.
Gotcha. Yep, it happens. All right, so we're gonna make one more method that's gonna kind of show how looping works. So yeah, how you do that? Show me. Yeah. Preference. Okay. Appearance. Oh shit. Yeah,
I can live with that though.
that's better. That's definitely better.
I know it looks like the sun is raping my eyes.
Yeah, I would imagine. Hell yeah, that's way better.
Once you go black, you never go back.
It's true. Once you go gray, you never turn gay. Oh, I see. Yeah. But it's still recognizable as to kind of what it is. Yeah.
You're good people for finding this, Tope.
So, okay, so we're going to make one more method. This one is going to do a loop. And a loop is basically just do this set of commands as many times as I tell you to in a loop, right? So basically we'll create a new method with the same kind of signature. We're going to make this a void method. So basically this method doesn't return anything, so it doesn't have to have a return statement. Okay. Okay. So what this method is going to do is basically it's going to print something, and it's going to print whatever statement you tell it to print, and it's going to print it as many times as you want it to print. So what we're going to do is we're going to create what in most programming languages is called a for loop. So we'll type the word for and then open parentheses. Okay. What this is saying inside the parentheses is that I'm creating a variable that's only to be used for this for loop. It's going to be an integer, and it's going to have a starting value of 0. It's going to iterate. It's going to continue to iterate while the value is less than the value that you passed into the method. And the way that it's going to iterate is it's going to add 1 to itself, which is what the plus plus means. So actually, an easier way to write it would be so again, I'll walk through this one more time. So opening the for loop, we're going to create an integer, give it a 0 value. It's going to add 1 to it, and then it's going to do whatever's in here, start at the top again, add 1 to it, do it again, do it again, do it again. As long as I, which is the value or the variable we've defined right here, is less than the number that we passed in. So you'll see this in action in a second here. So what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and copy one of these system.out.println functions. So I'm literally just going to copy paste that. And then where it says, hello, motherfuckers, I'm going to remove that. And I'm going to put in print me. So basically what it's going to do is it's going to print whatever's inside, whatever you told it to print, however many number of times you told it to do it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And so the way that I learn is I'm like a big learn by doing kind of person. So I'm the kind of person who if I was explaining this to myself, I'd be like, yeah, I don't fucking get it. And then as soon as I wrote it out and did it and screwed it up and then figured it out, I'd be like, oh, that makes sense. So if any of this doesn't make sense, just try it. And most of the time you'll find that once you tried it, you're like, oh yeah, this seems obvious. So we're gonna add another line, and this time we're gonna call our new function. And the string I'm gonna pass in is Murphy is cool. Don't tell her I said that. And we're gonna print it 10 times. So now, if I run this again, it printed Murphy is cool 10 times in a row. So is everybody kind of getting similar outputs?
You?
Did you say no?
Yeah, I said no.
Okay.
Yes.
Nice. So what's going on, Mal? You mean quotes? Right. Right.
I didn't see when you rewrote the I+1 that you had put an equal in there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep.
So that's what happened. I had just I+1 and it was like, no.
Gotcha. So basically, to be completely honest with you, these two control structures that I just explained to you, the if statement and the for loop, are like any complicated program, no matter how advanced it seems, almost always breaks down to blocks that look very similar to this. So if you can understand these control structures and what they're doing and how they work, that is the foundation for writing any program in any language, basically. There's plenty more on top of that. I mean, we're just scratching the surface, but at a very fundamental level, that's really all computers do, is they compare things and then manipulate things based on those comparisons. So for now, since it's about 10, I feel like this is kind of a good stopping place. But I'd like to give you guys some resources of things you can start to do on your own. If this were, like, obviously I'm not a teacher, but if this were a class, we would be meeting much more regularly. And so one of the things that I thought of was that since we're only going to be meeting once every couple weeks, I want you guys to have enough to take away that you have stuff to do if you want to continue learning. Like, so you don't feel like at the end of the lesson you're like, oh, that was great, but I don't know what the fuck to do next. So I'm gonna put some resources either tonight or tomorrow morning. I'm gonna put a bunch of resources in Java Info of different tutorials you can begin to walk through that will help you to start to get the fundamentals of programming in general and of Java. So is everybody kind of comfortable with that?
Yes.
Sounds good.
And like, so the way I feel like this is probably going to go is obviously everybody has like lives and other shit going on. So you guys do whatever like your involvement level is your business, right? And then when we come back every couple weeks, we'll kind of find out where everybody's at, and we'll tailor the lesson to what everyone did. I mean, like, you guys might decide, hey, this stuff's super cool, and like this is all I'm going to do with my free time. And 2 weeks from now, you're like, yeah, I know how to write a web app. Like, here's a bunch of shit. Or you might be like, yeah, I was really busy and I didn't do shit. So that's fine too. Either way, it doesn't matter to me. I'm not gonna like bust your balls or anything, except for Eddie.
Damn it.
Okay, so I feel like that's a good stopping place. I'll also I'll post this code as well, so you guys can refer to it if you want it for any reason. You've probably written very similar stuff, but I'll just post it anyway. So yeah, so does anybody have any questions? I know, Toby, you said you had one. Or is that something unrelated? Oh. That's actually a really good question. So the answer is there's really no good answer. So they call that it's called camel case because camels have humps. So like theoretically the first letter of each word is capitalized, but for some reason that I don't know in Java, and it seems like only Java, nobody capitalizes the first letter of the very first word. Like if you were writing C#, you would see a lot of programmers capitalizing the W in "Were you Steve?" or the A. Yeah, I don't know why, but Java, for whatever reason, has decided that they don't like capitalizing the first letter. There's absolutely no reason why you can't do it. And in some places you do it. It's a very strange. Like in some ways, learning a programming language is a lot like learning the nuances of a real language, because it's like there are colloquialisms we use when we speak to each other that I don't know why the fuck they're that way. So in the same sense, like I don't know why it is that the very first letter is not capitalized. I just know that that's how they do it. So that's how I do it. It's a style, yeah. And some dumbass curmudgeon, if you got a job and like you capitalized the first letter, I guarantee you there's some OCD ass old man who would be like, you shouldn't do it that way.
All of the programming classes I took, they taught us to do camel casing because that's the expected standard in a lot of places. That's what they want to see, because you're not the only person working on like an application. It's a bunch of people working on it at once.
Exactly.
So it makes everything nice and uniform.
Yep.
I always thought it was because, like, a lot of the system keywords have to be capitalized, and so it's an easy differentiation between your variables or what have you, and the system keywords too.
Yeah, that could be. Like when I first started programming, like way back in the day, like if you were gonna make like an integer, you would do it this way.
Mm-hmm.
So you would prefix your variable with the type of variable that it was. So int underscore, or maybe there wasn't an underscore, but it would always have, like, if it was a string, it would be str, etc. But no one does that shit anymore. Mostly because you can hover over it and see what type it is. Like you can see it was a string. And this Eclipse is called an IDE, which means was it integrated development environment. So basically, it's just a tool for you to write code. And tools like Eclipse and IntelliJ and Visual Studio for .NET development have come a long way. Like they used to be total dog shit, and now they make writing code a lot easier. So I think that's it for tonight, guys.
Very cool.
I know it's not much yet, but these are the building blocks of writing good code. That's fine. And I knew that this first week would largely be set up that we would do together. Yeah, and if you choose, like, so there's not a lot of Java choices. There's Eclipse, there's IntelliJ, there's one called NetBeans, which I don't think anybody really uses. So the big two are Eclipse and IntelliJ. So if you are going to set up another one, you'd most likely do that. And we can spend time early doing that if you want to. Actually, just try and install it yourself, and then if you have problems, just post them, and I'll let you know how to fix it. But like, okay,
Thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you for buying Discord Nitro because I could not follow what the hell you did tonight if you had not had it be clearer.
Is it so? It's pretty good now.
It's like perfect now.
Okay. Sweet. Okay. Yeah, and like I said, I mean, I don't mind paying for that because Discord's a really super awesome service that we all use regularly. They deserve some money.
It's only like $5, right?
Yeah, I just paid for the year, so it's $50. So it's like they give you a discount.
I'm gonna buy you a really big coffee
That's fine.
with extra caramel
What about steak?
and steak in it too. Yes.
Yes.
You steak caramel coffee, the drink of
Hell
men.
yeah. Put some
And,
hair on your chest.
And blueberries where there should be chocolate chips.
Yes.
I'm getting worse with every edition.
You guys want to do an Overwatch match?
I will. Y'all
Okay.
should do that dungeon too.
What dungeon?
The dungeon y'all were supposed to get on and do Sunday. Okay.
Yeah, can't do it without Verge.
Give me like 5 minutes to do this PvP quest that goes away very shortly, and then I will come do an Overwatch match with you.
Okay.
Let me go pee and I'll join you guys.
Okay, I'm gonna leave the call and then just go to Overwatch channel.
Okay.